Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. The Focke-Wulf FW 200 Condor is one of the most unusual aircraft to serve Germany during the early years of World War II. Unlike many combat aircraft of its era, the Condor was not designed as a bomber or a reconnaissance plane. It began its life as a civilian airliner, elegant, long-ranged, and built to connect continents rather than destroy them. Yet war has a way of reshaping technology. When conflict came, the FW-200 was transformed into a long-range bomber and reconnaissance aircraft, playing a significant role in the Battle of the Atlantic during a critical period of the war. The FW-200 was developed by Focke-Wulf in the mid-1930s, at a time when Germany sought to demonstrate its growing technological capabilities. The aircraft made its first flight in 1937 and was originally intended as a long-distance passenger plane. Its design focused on range, endurance, and stability. 4 engines provided reliability over long distances, while the long fuselage allowed for significant fuel capacity. These qualities made the Condor impressive in civilian service and extremely attractive to military planners. Even before the war began, it was clear that the FW-200 could fly farther than most aircraft available to the Luftwaffe. At the outbreak of World War II, Germany faced a serious strategic limitation. It lacked a true long-range bomber force and had very limited ability to patrol the vast expanses of the Atlantic Ocean. Meanwhile, Allied shipping routes were critical to sustaining Britain. Germany needed eyes over the ocean. The FW-200, despite its civilian origins, was one of the few aircraft capable of filling this gap. Its long range allowed it to operate far beyond coastal waters, making it ideal for long-range reconnaissance and maritime patrol. The first true military step came when the FW-200B1, construction number WNR0002, was converted into a military prototype and redesignated as Prototype VII. This aircraft became the basis for the future FW-200C series. One of the most important modifications was the addition of a ventral gondola beneath the fuselage. This under-fuselage structure housed 2 defensive gun positions, providing limited protection against fighters and ground fire. Additional changes followed: reinforced fuselage sections, military communication equipment, bomb racks for anti-shipping missions. With these modifications, the Condor officially entered military service as a long-range bomber reconnaissance aircraft. Design strengths and weaknesses. Although the Condor now carried weapons, it remained fundamentally a civilian aircraft at heart. This had serious consequences. Its long range and endurance were excellent, allowing missions lasting many hours. However, its airframe was relatively fragile. The fuselage, never designed for combat stresses, was prone to cracking, especially during rough landings or evasive maneuvers. The Condor could see far, but it could not fight well. The FW-200's primary mission was maritime reconnaissance. Flying far out over the Atlantic, Condor crews searched for Allied convoys. When ships were found, their positions were transmitted back to German command and submarine units. In many cases, the FW-200 did not need to attack directly. Simply locating convoys allowed U-boats to intercept and attack later. In this way, the Condor acted as a force multiplier, dramatically increasing the effectiveness of German submarines. When conditions allowed, the FW-200 also conducted direct bombing attacks, usually from low altitude. While not highly accurate, these attacks added to the pressure on Allied shipping. For Allied sailors, the appearance of a Condor overhead was deeply unsettling. It often meant that submarines would soon follow. Even when no immediate attack occurred, the presence of the FW-200 forced convoys to remain alert and defensive. During 1940-1941, when Allied air cover was still limited, the Condor operated with relative freedom. This period marked the peak of its effectiveness. If you're enjoying this deep dive into aviation history and want more detailed stories about military aircraft, bombers, and forgotten designs, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. It really helps the channel grow and allows more content like this to be made. Although reconnaissance was its primary role, the Condor was also used for direct bombing attacks against Allied shipping, especially early in the war. Flying at low level, crews attempted to drop bombs with enough accuracy to damage or sink merchant vessels. These attacks were risky. Low-level flight exposed the aircraft to anti-aircraft fire from ships, and the Condor's large size made it an easy target. But when successful, these attacks had a powerful psychological effect. Merchant crews soon learned to recognize the distinctive silhouette of the FW-200 and to fear what usually followed. Structural problems and limitations. As operational tempo increased, the Condor's structural weaknesses became increasingly apparent. The aircraft had been designed for smooth, controlled civilian operations, not combat stress. Common problems included fuselage cracking during hard landings, damage caused by turbulence and evasive maneuvers, limited ability to absorb battle damage. These issues forced strict operational limits on pilots and often grounded aircraft for extended repairs. Attempts were made to reinforce the structure, but these modifications added weight and reduced performance. The Condor was being pushed far beyond its intended limits. To improve survivability, later versions of the FW-200 received increased defensive armament. Machine guns were added to dorsal, ventral, and lateral positions, creating overlapping fields of fire. Despite these improvements, the Condor remained vulnerable. Its defensive guns were primarily a deterrent rather than a true defense. Once Allied fighters appeared, especially long-range escort aircraft, the Condor's losses increased sharply. The aircraft had range, but no protection from modern air combat. Now, back to the story of the Condor. As the war progressed, the FW-200's weaknesses became increasingly obvious. Allied defenses improved rapidly. Long-range fighters began escorting convoys. Radar coverage expanded. Anti-aircraft fire became more effective. The Condor, large and slow, became an easy target. Its defensive armament was gradually increased, but this could not compensate for its lack of speed and structural strength. Losses mounted, and the aircraft's operational freedom disappeared. By the middle of the war, the FW-200 was no longer suitable for frontline operations. More specialized aircraft were introduced, and Allied air superiority made long-range reconnaissance missions extremely dangerous. The Condor was gradually withdrawn from its original role and relegated to secondary duties. Its brief but intense operational period had ended. The Focke-Wulf FW-200 Condor was a product of necessity rather than ideal design. Born as a civilian airliner, it was forced into a military role it was never meant to fill. For a moment in history, it cast a long shadow over the Atlantic. But like many improvised wartime solutions, that shadow eventually faded.